everyone. Welcome to the Wills, Women, and Wealth podcast. I'm Elsa W. Smith, your Maryland estate planning and probate attorney, and I'm thrilled to have you with us today. We're here to empower women who value their health, wealth, and the legacies they're creating. This podcast delves into a diverse range of subjects encompassing finance, law, mental and physical health, and beyond. Our commitment is to furnish you with invaluable insights, engaging expert interviews, and enlightening episodes that address your questions on wills, estate planning, and probate matters. Remember, this is your community, and we want to hear from you. Engage with us, ask questions, suggest topics. Let's build a dialogue. Reach out to us on social media or leave us a comment below. Your input fuels the conversations we have. You can find all of our episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for our upcoming content. We appreciate your support, and if you enjoy the podcast, please consider leaving us a 5-star review. Your review helps amplify our reach and brings our content to more listeners. And now, on with the podcast. Today's topic is the overwhelmed DIY personal representative, a probate cautionary tale. As we continue our probate series, we'll dive into a scenario that many families face: a personal representative attempting to navigate probate without professional guidance. This is a situation we've seen firsthand, and today's story is inspired by such real-life experiences. Whether you're managing an estate or know someone who is, this episode highlights the importance of seeking the right support during this challenging process. Before we dive into today's topic, let's take a moment to explain a few key terms that will help guide our discussion. First, we'll talk about the personal representative. This is the individual responsible for managing a deceased person's estate. This person has the job of gathering assets, paying off debts, and distributing the remaining property to heirs or beneficiaries. Next is probate. Probate is the legal process where a court supervises the administration of a deceased person's estate. It includes things like validating a will, appointing the personal representative, and ensuring the estate's debts are paid before assets are distributed. You'll also hear the word estate, of course. An estate includes all the assets and debts a person leaves behind when they pass away. Everything from bank accounts and property to outstanding loans. And lastly, we have beneficiaries, the people or organizations who are set to receive assets from the estate. And when the court formally gives the personal representative the authority to act, they issue what's called a letter of administration. With these key terms in mind, let's move into our discussion of the overwhelmed DIY personal representative and the complexities they face in probate. Now, let's talk about our factual scenario. Charles, a Maryland resident, passed away at the age of 72, leaving behind an outdated will drafted 16 years ago. In the will, Charles named his eldest daughter, Rachel, as the personal representative of his estate. Charles was a widower. At the time of his death, Charles's estate had grown to include real estate, investment accounts, and personal property, none of which were fully detailed in the outdated will. Rachel, recently laid off from her job, was under financial strain and felt the need to save money wherever possible. She decided to handle the probate process herself without hiring an attorney, thinking she could manage it with online resources. However, she quickly became overwhelmed by the legal requirements and paperwork. Among the things Rachel struggled with were asset identification. One of the first major hurdles Rachel faced as the personal representative was identifying and locating all of her father's assets. The outdated will provided little guidance on the scope of Charles's estate. 16 years ago, when the will was drafted, Charles only owned a modest home and a small retirement account. By the time of his death, however, his assets had grown considerably to include a second property, various investment accounts, and personal property, such as valuable art and antiques. Without clear documentation or updated records, Rachel had to conduct her own investigation into her father's assets. She didn't know where all the accounts were located or which institutions held them. Bank statements were scattered, and some assets were tied up in online accounts for which she lacked access credentials. Furthermore, Charles's financial advisor had retired several years prior, leaving Rachel without an easy way to trace investments. Valuing the assets was another challenge. The second property had undergone extensive renovations, but no recent appraisal had been done, leaving Rachel to estimate its current value. She also struggled to determine the value of Charles's personal property. Some items held sentimental value but were not financially significant, while others, such as art pieces, required expert appraisals that Rachel did not know how to obtain. Rachel's inexperience led to delays as she attempted to gather information piece by piece. Meanwhile, the probate court required timely reporting of assets, and she felt the pressure mounting. What could have been a straightforward process with professional assistance turned into a drawn out and stressful experience. Rachel's uncertainty in locating, valuing, and categorizing her father's estate caused probate to be delayed for months. Are you in Maryland or DC embarking on your estate planning journey? Let us guide you through the process. Join us for a complimentary 15-minute call with a member of our team. There's no obligation. Check out the show notes for the scheduling link. Your first step towards securing your family's future starts here. Another significant challenge Rachel faced in her attempt to handle probate herself was managing the court filings. As personal representative, she was required to submit several key documents to the probate court, including an inventory of the estate's assets and periodic accountings showing how the estate was being handled. Each of these filings came with strict deadlines, and failure to comply could lead to show cause orders or other sanctions by the court. A show cause is a court order that requires someone to explain or justify why they did or did not do something, and why the court shouldn't take further action against them. Rachel, unfamiliar with the legal procedures involved in probate, underestimated how meticulous and time-consuming the filings would be. The paperwork alone was overwhelming, and each document required detailed information, often cross-referencing multiple sources. For example, when she submitted the estate's inventory, Rachel missed several assets and provided incomplete valuations. The court rejected her initial submission, requesting a full and accurate inventory, which put her back to square one. The delays in filing had ripple effects. Though the court did not impose fines or penalties, the court warned Rachel of potential sanctions if further delays occurred. These could include requiring Rachel to provide explanations in court for the holdups, appointing an alternate personal representative, or even removing her from the role altogether if the estate continued to languish in limbo. The looming threat of such sanctions added extra stress to Rachel's already fraught situation. Rachel's attempts to meet the court's procedural demands without legal guidance caused the probate process to drag on for months. Each missed deadline not only slowed the distribution of assets, but also added to the family's growing frustration. Had she enlisted the help of a probate lawyer, the filings could have been handled with greater efficiency and accuracy, helping avoid the risk of court sanctions and keeping the estate on track. As the probate process progressed, Rachel encountered another unexpected obstacle: managing creditor claims. After her father's death, several creditors came forward with claims against the estate, seeking repayment for outstanding debts. This included credit card companies, medical bills, and even a contractor who had performed work recently on one of Charles's properties. As personal representative, Rachel was responsible for ensuring that legitimate debts were paid out of the estate's assets before any distributions could be made to heirs. However, Rachel was unsure how to determine which claims were valid, how to dispute inflated or fraudulent claims, and the correct order in which debts should be paid. Without legal guidance, she struggled to communicate with the creditors effectively. Some creditors were demanding immediate payment, while others offered settlements that seemed reasonable but left Rachel uncertain. Additionally, the probate process required her to publish a notice to creditors, but Rachel had no experience in drafting such notices or understanding the legal nuances involved. As creditors became more persistent, Rachel found herself overwhelmed. Her attempts to negotiate payment plans or settlements without a clear understanding of her authority as personal representative led to confusion. In some cases, she unintentionally delayed payments, causing creditors to escalate their demands by threatening legal action. Rachel's financial stress worsened as she tried to figure out how to manage these debts while protecting the estate's assets. Without an attorney to guide her through the process, Rachel risked paying off claims that may not have been legitimate, potentially depleting estate funds that were meant for her and her other heirs. The lack of professional help not only delayed the resolution of these claims, but also exposed the estate to further financial risk. Had Rachel consulted a lawyer, a probate lawyer specifically, early on, many of these creditor issues could have been handled smoothly and efficiently, saving both time and money. Rachel's decision to handle the probate process on her own created friction with her sisters, Emily and Sarah. Initially, the sisters were supportive of Rachel's role as personal representative, but as the months dragged on and the process stalled, their frustrations grew. Rachel's difficulty in managing the legal and financial aspects of the estate led to delays in distributing assets, and this lack of progress caused tension among the siblings. Emily and Sarah, both of whom had families of their own to support, began questioning Rachel's ability to fulfill her role. They felt that she was overwhelmed and in over her head, and suggested hiring an attorney to help speed up the process. However, Rachel, still financially strained from her job loss, resisted the idea of bringing in outside help, believing she could manage the responsibilities herself and save the estate money. As the probate process became increasingly complicated, Emily and Sarah's patience wore thin. They started to suspect that Rachel's reluctance to seek professional assistance was doing more harm than good. Disagreements about how to handle the estate's assets, particularly the family's home, further deepened the rift. While Rachel wanted to sell the property to cover the estate's debts, Emily and Sarah wanted to keep the house, hoping it would be passed down to future generations. These family disagreements were exacerbated by Rachel's growing anxiety and stress. Her inability to effectively communicate the steps she was taking as personal representative, combined with the slow pace of probate, made her sisters feel left out and uncertain about the estate's future. The lack of clear communication and professional guidance caused what had once been a cooperative family relationship to deteriorate. In the end, the probate process not only took an emotional toll on Rachel, but also strained the family dynamic. Had Rachel sought legal assistance, the probate process could have been more streamlined, and the sisters may have been able to avoid the personal conflicts that arose. The lesson here is that while attempting to DIY probate might seem cost effective, the emotional and financial costs of doing so can far outweigh the savings. As the process dragged on for months, Rachel realized she was in over her head. The estate became further delayed, with unresolved issues regarding real estate taxes looming. What began as an attempt to save money ended up costing the estate more due to mistakes, penalties, and the overall inefficiency of trying to manage the probate process without professional help. To recap, in today's episode of the Overwhelmed DIY Personal Representative, a Cautionary Tale, we explored the case of Rachel, a personal representative who became overwhelmed by the probate process after trying to handle it without professional assistance. Despite her best intentions to save money, Rachel struggled with identifying and valuing her father's assets, meeting the court's filing deadlines, managing creditor claims, and navigating growing tensions with her sisters. Her lack of experience led to delays, mistakes, and the looming threat of court sanctions, all of which made the probate process longer and more stressful than it needed to be. This case highlights the importance of seeking professional help to navigate probate efficiently and avoid unnecessary complications. Now that you have a better understanding of the challenges and key terms involved in managing an estate, it's important to recognize that going through this process without guidance can be overwhelming. If you find yourself in this situation or have questions about how to proceed, we're here to help. Take the next step by scheduling a complimentary 15-minute call with a member of our team. We can provide insight into your unique situation and help you navigate the complexities of probate with confidence. The link to connect with our firm will be in the show notes. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Wills, Women, and Wealth podcast. I'm Elsa W. Smith, your Maryland estate planning and probate attorney. Until next time, stay informed, stay empowered, and take control of your legacy.